Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Eyrun Magnusdottir, and I'm a journalist. I like that title very much more than being an editor of something, because I think that's the case with many people that work in the media. We just want to be able to be journalists and stand for that. My first job in the media was at a newspaper, actually the newspaper I work for now, and that was in 2001. And now, with all the changes since then, it seems like a very long time ago, even though it's not that long ago. But a lot of things have changed, actually. Okay, I decided to put this up there. Like everywhere in the Western world, the newspapers have been struggling here in Iceland. That's nothing new. The development is that the readership is declining, the landscape is changing. We face a lot of challenges. One of them is, why should you wait with a story when you can just post it online? Why should you wait until tomorrow morning when you can just publish it now and be done with it? So that's really one of the challenges of the recent years. But it's not quite that simple, because newspapers, websites, every sort of media needs revenues to survive. And it seems to be the case that the advertising money is still pointed towards the paper media. So advertisers are still willing to pay more to put their ad in a paper than on the web. These are the numbers for Iceland. I'm sorry, this is partly in Icelandic, but the big blue part that says 37.4% is advertising money towards the print, the paper media. So the web is still only getting 12% here in Iceland of advertising money. This cake is a little bit different here than in the US, and I believe in most of Europe, because there has been, the development is that the money is going more and more towards the website and less in the paper media. But this has not happened as fast here in Iceland. I don't know the reason for that, but maybe we're just more conservative or something. I have no idea. But I think this is very interesting. These numbers are very interesting, because they really, even if readership is declining, and even if probably the whole cake is smaller than it used to be, then this does not tell us that the paper is dying, or that we will all be out of a job soon or doing something completely different. But we don't just need advertisers, we want readers as well. And this says, these are the papers here in Iceland. We have Fyrirlestur and Morgunbladid. They are both daily newspapers. We have DVAF, that comes out twice a week. And then the other two, Fréttatíminn and Viðskiptablaðið, they're weekly papers. So they all differ a little bit. Fréttablaðið and Fréttatíminn, the two tallest ones, they are free, but the others you have to subscribe for. Readership has been declining here in Iceland in general, but again, it's not as fast as in other European countries and the US, where we see like the last 10 years just like this. But here in Iceland it's a little bit down, but it seems to be becoming more steady. So I think we should just stop looking at the past, when we had this big one, the 50% was in 70%, and the orange one was in 50%. I think it's quite unique worldwide to have a subscription paper like Morgunbladid with this much readership. This is the whole country and every ages. I think Iceland is a little bit different. We're probably more interested in our newspapers than than in many other countries, and people seem to be quite loyal. Why newspapers? This is probably an important question for all of us that work in the media or for everyone probably. Why should we read a newspaper? It's not, I mean, they're not very sexy. Well, this particular one maybe, but in general, you can't click anything. You can't really do anything with it. It's just a piece of paper. It's just there. And so we're thinking, okay, why should people pick it up? They don't really need it. No one needs a newspaper anymore. We have access to all the information that's probably in this somewhere else, or we can just do something else with our time. We can go to a movie or read a book or do something else. So we don't still need newspapers. But as you know, most of the largest news websites in the world are spun off from newspapers, so they're owned by newspaper companies. So, and that's the case in Iceland as well. The most popular news sites are the ones that the largest newspapers have created. So, the newspaper-originated websites became this big in the first place because people were just used to getting their news from this direction. So this is where we expected to get news and other information from. So it was kind of a normal development that these are the largest news websites as well. That's probably changing now, but I think Atli Fannar will talk more about different types of news websites later. But so the answer to the question, why newspapers? Well, I don't think there's a simple answer. They're just there, sort of. We're just used to getting our news from newspapers. We're just used to reading them. So there's nothing really new with that, I think. But we as journalists, we don't really need the newspapers either. The readers don't need them, and we don't need them. We can print our stories online, or we can just put them on Facebook. But the problem is always, how do we get the revenue? Who is willing to pay, and where does the money fit into the puzzle? So our challenge is perhaps, how do we make people want to read newspapers? That's what we need to do. They don't need them, but they have to want them. We need to sort of create newspapers that people want to read. So, and now for kind of a cliche part of my lecture is, what is a newspaper? Because, and this is no rocket science, if we want to figure this out, how do we make people want to read newspapers? We probably have to know what they are. I just made a list of whatever I could think of, like some of the things that are in a newspaper. This is not a complete list of everything. A newspaper is a mix of a lot of things. But like I said before, people have access to all these things anyway. You don't need the paper to tell you the news, or to tell you anything for that matter. I think we're not that different from maybe a politician losing their votes. When that happens, when the polls go down, they really need to focus on themselves. Okay, who am I? What am I doing here? And we really need to figure this out, because I think that's sort of our key to surviving. So maybe, and I don't know the key to this. I can't tell you. Newspaper is supposed to be like this and that, but maybe it's in the mix. Like, you can get bits and pieces of everything, but in a paper, it's all been put together for you, and it's delivered to you, and you just, okay, this is a package. This is something I need, and here I have sort of everything. And then if there's something you something more you need, you just Google it or whatever you want to do. I think every single newspaper has been struggling. We've been struggling with this, especially newspapers that also have news websites. We've been struggling with this question: what do you put online and what do you publish in the paper? Like, what's the difference between these two? Is there a difference? Do we have to have different content? Do we have to have, we have different layouts, there's different graphics and all, but is the newspaper supposed to be more like a website? Do we need to try and create this link between the web and the newspaper? I'm not so sure. And I think there has been a lot of desperation, I dare to call it, within newspapers, trying to be a little bit more. We look at clicks, like what are people looking at on the internet, what are the most popular online news, and then we see a name and okay, we need to interview this person because so many people are willing to click on it. But it's not necessarily the same. It's not necessarily the case that people will want to read a long interview with this person, or that they're really interested in a specific topic just because it has a lot of clicks. So it's not always the same type of readership or the same type of interest that people have in online content and the newspapers. So I think we have to be different. I think we have to do something completely different. Having said that, I realize I'm holding this paper. This is our last Sunday edition, and this couple here had been in every website in Iceland, every news website. They were the most clicked on couple for like a month ago when they got married. So we decided to interview them anyway, but we did it a little bit differently. We sent a photographer to their home in Los Angeles, and he took great photos of them, and we tried to sort of go a little bit deeper, get into their lives. What is it really about? Because they have a little bit where their life is a little bit different than this is a world that we don't know, or I didn't at least. So we decided to sort of use what the newspaper can do. We can really use photos, and we can go, like, we can do more in depth. We can do things a little bit differently than the web. So, and that was, I think it worked. We have gotten a lot of reaction on that interview. I want to talk about one specific sort of practical problem that we have that has probably more to do with software or whatever than anything else. But I get this question a lot because the things we print in the paper are not necessarily automatically online. They're not, you have to pay for this, so we can't just put everything online for free. So people will call me up and ask this: can I click? Like, where can I see my interview? I was interviewed, and they want to be able to click, and I have to and I feel like 100 years old when I say no, I'm sorry, that's not possible. The computer says no, and then I think about my son when I sat with him. He's now 7. When he was about 2 or 3, we were sitting by the computer, and we were looking through photos of family members, and he saw a photo of his cousin, and he reached for the screen and said, "Tala við hana," it means talk to her, and for him it was completely natural to just reach for the screen, and he wanted to talk to her, and I had to explain, no, this is a photograph. They are dead. It's just a photograph. You can't interact with her. But for him, it was a completely normal demand to be able to just talk with her. She's there. Why not? And it was completely normal. And of course he makes this demand. I mean, he knows that it's possible to talk with people like that. So why not just when he sees the photograph, he wants to be able to click on it. And she's supposed to come alive and talk with him. And I had to explain to him, no, computer says no, that's not an option. It's just a photograph, and that's really old way of, so I sometimes feel like that when we're saying no, you cannot click it. And the other end of this is that, well, when people are interviewed by our news websites, they ask, okay, so will this be printed? Will I be in the paper? And they say, no, your interview is just online. And then it's like, sometimes people feel like they're sort of less important or something. Like, oh, I'm just online. Oh, okay, am I not important enough to be printed? So it's really a weird dilemma, because we're always making these choices, like what do we put in the paper? And then we don't, like with this paper, we don't put the whole interview online. It's maybe just a teaser, and then you're told, okay, you can get more in the paper. But maybe all news media, like websites, have to think about this. Like, can we create a different, like, can people, and some do, that sometimes you can just click for more and you can just pay for that article. Where I work, you don't have that option, you just have to subscribe and you get everything, or you get just nothing, but just bits and pieces and teasers. I wanted to talk a little bit about this because I Googled. That's what you do when you're preparing for something, you just Google it. So I decided I Googled the future of newspapers. Okay, so you have a lot of articles. The first one was something I can't remember. The second one was, the title of it was The Decline of Newspapers. So that's what you get when you write the future of newspapers. You get a lot of stories about the decline of readership and the decline of newspapers. So my personal opinion is that there's no real need to feel sad about it, that we cannot keep looking back when newspapers were really big, and there's no way that we will get as many subscribers to our newspaper than as we had like 10 years ago. That's just not going to happen. So we have to find new ways, and I think not just the media here in Iceland, but everywhere, everyone is still struggling with how to get money out of online content. That's still a really current problem, because we haven't figured that out. No one has. So, and we're trying all these different ways, like of making money online, but as you saw before, advertisers are still hung up on newspapers, that the ad has to be printed. So that's still where the revenue comes from, and people are still willing to pay for subscription to a paper, but they seem to be less willing to pay for online content. So I don't think that indicates that the newspaper is quite dead yet. But okay, what next? I thought a lot about this. Like, what can I say? What will come next? Should I predict the future? Should I say that yes, I think the future of newspaper is so and so? But the best answer is that I really don't know. None of us does. We don't know. No one could predict the place we're at right now. When I started in journalism in 2001, there was no social media. We didn't know that everything was gonna change so completely. So I think maybe that there will be that the development might be that the newspapers, that we don't need them daily, that there'll be more emphasis on weekly papers than daily newspapers, so that there will maybe be deeper, like more content, more in-depth news, not just the same news as you can get online every day. So, and I thought I'd put it up there. Maybe there'll be a comeback for newspapers like vinyl records, because it's we have so many choices today. We can, and we talk about this a lot. I don't want to, like, no one's going to decide for me what music I listen to. I just listen to whatever I want. If I want to listen to this song first and then another song, I will make my own playlist. You know, you can make your own playlist. You can read the news you want. You can only read news about cats if you want. You can choose that, and you don't see anything else. You can. So that's really your choice. But maybe I'm old-fashioned, but sometimes I get really tired of all this choice. I feel relief just having one paper to read, you know. But it has to be good. We need to really work hard. So sometimes it's the same with a record. Sometimes it's just really like a relief. Okay, this artist has chosen that I'm supposed to listen to this song first, and then there's number 2 is that I don't have a choice. I just listen to the whole record from song 1 to 14, whatever. So I decided to put up the deck of cards there, because for me that's sort of when I really need to relax, I sometimes find it I find it very soothing to just pick up a deck of cards, and I play this solitaire, I think it's called in English. So this is sort of my mindfulness, just to take my mind off of something. And I was doing it, I put it up there because I was doing this the other day, and I realized that it was the only thing I'd done that day that was offline. Every interaction I'd had, everything I'd done was on Facebook or somehow online. So this was an interaction, even if it was with myself, that was offline. I was just holding something tangible in my hand and doing something and I thought, oh, okay, this is kind of a relief. This is nice. I have something that's not online. I don't have to be in this constant interaction with someone or something. I don't really know why sometimes. I'm just scrolling down on Facebook. I don't know why. I just do it. So sometimes it's good to just pick yourself up and go out of the online world and into something that's really dull, like a deck of cards or a newspaper or a vinyl record. So I sort of feel like that's in the same department. But then again, we might, like I said, I cannot predict the future, because maybe, and I don't think any of us can, maybe we'll have something completely different. Maybe in a couple of years our refrigerator is gonna tell us the news when we wake up and we are eating breakfast. I don't know. Now everything is smart. We have our phones, and clothing there's like smart clothing, so your clothing is going to be online. You're going to have glasses that are online, and all of your equipment at home is going to be online as well. So I don't know where our news are going to come from. They might come from our toaster, our vacuum cleaner, wherever. I have no idea. We need to be open to new forms of media. And I think it's safe to say that the newspapers are not dead yet. The readership is declining. I don't know if they're gonna, if maybe in some matter of years that no one will need newspapers and no one will want them. But we've definitely not reached that point yet. And maybe it won't, maybe we're never gonna get there. I don't know. But I think that, well, I think that it's they still have a place in this media jungle, even if it's getting more difficult to realize, like especially for journalists. But for us, it's really an opportunity to focus on like what is being a journalist. Like, why are we doing this? We need to be focused on our methods. We need to just be really clear on why we became journalists and what it is that we want to do. And it shouldn't matter that much to us as journalists if our stories are published in a newspaper, if they're published online, or if they're published through a refrigerator. We are not supposed to care, and we shouldn't care about that. So I don't think there's any reason to feel sorry for newspapers. They're still here, and they're still doing quite strong, I think. So I'm just going to end with that. So thank you very much for listening.